Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Axie Infinity Community AMA. It is June 23rd, 2021, and I've got two of the greatest Axie minds here for you. That's right, you sitting at home to pick their brains, get to learn a little bit more about the latest and greatest coming out of Lunasia and any other pressing questions that may be on your brain right now. We've got Psycheout 86, we've got Jiho, and I'm Zyori, going to be hosting this little panel, this little AMA discussion. Gentlemen, how are we? Alex, you first. Welcome to the AMA. How are you today?
Thanks, Andrew. I'm great. I'm excited to have this talk with the community and to clear up some, I guess, questions that we've been seeing in the community lately. So should be a good hour and 30 minutes. I guess we'll see how many questions we have. But yeah, quite excited.
Jeff, how are we?
I'm excited to be here. It's been a little while since we've had a chance to kind of really speak directly to the community. It used to be a lot easier back in the old days when the community was smaller, right? So this is, I think, a nice experiment. Let's see, if this is if the community enjoys this and we can make it more of a regular thing.
Yeah, the growth has been fantastic, but with all these new people coming into Lunasia, I think we've got maybe some basic questions that are worth going over, even if they've been reiterated before in the past. The Discord has been hard to keep up with, to say the least, so I'm excited to dive in as well. A lot of these questions going to be coming from our subreddit. That's reddit.com/r/Axie Infinity. There's also been a lot of growth over there. We posted this AMA thread and got a whole lot of questions, so thank you very much for that. And of course, we are going to be fielding maybe a couple things out of Twitch chat while these guys are chatting. I'll be fishing around for other questions. So appreciate all y'all in Twitch chat. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in. So first question coming from a gentleman or a woman, I suppose, named Adafel. He said, what, if anything, can be done to keep demand high for SLP? As far as I can tell, demand for SLP is high because it's used to breed Axies, which is used to earn more SLP. This seems circular to me. Demand created by demand, and I'm worried that the bubble is going to burst.
Yeah, Jeff, I guess you might be interested in taking this question.
Definitely. So, yeah, I think so. The founders of Axie Infinity, right? Trung, Masamune, Alexander, and I, we've thought a lot about the economy. We, originally came from the CryptoKitties community. And so basically making sure that the Axie population grows at a rate that's healthy and proportional to the growth of the incoming new player population, right? So it's basically how the SLP system works is, if there's more demand for Axies, there's more SLP, but there's also more SLP that's burned, right? So I think that the SLP system is kind of finely tuned, and yeah, there are many reasons that people want Axies, right? Some people, they love the community, they want to play the game. Others, they do love the play to earn aspect. Some people, they just think that Axies are cute and lovable. So there's so many ways to enjoy playing the game. And this is what creates the demand for Axies. And right, we're trying something that's never been done before, right? Where we're basically sharing the value of the game with the community, right? So, all games, they need to grow. They do need to grow and, to have a healthy player population. I think, this is what creates an economy, right? And one way to think of Lunasia and Axie is as a nation, right? Like growing, having new immigrants. This is always something that's healthy and leads to a growing economy. So I think it's a little bit to wrap your mind around, right? Because it's an entirely new paradigm. It's a new way of building a game. And yeah, there's a lot of experimentation, but so far it seems to be working. And for the last 4 years, right, it's like the demand for Axie over time has always gone up. And I think as we add new features and try new experiments, we expect that to be the case for a long time.
I think I'd also like to add a little bit in terms of, on the business side. So like a super quick introduction. I'm Alexander, also known as Psycheout. I handle kind of the business side of the company, relationships, partnerships with investors. And a lot of what we spend our time on, is thinking about like what does make financial sense for the Sky Mavis company that's creating Axie Infinity and like the Axie community, so that we make sure that everyone is building and pushing towards the same direction. So when we are looking at traditional mobile games, for example, or traditional games in general, you would buy the main character from the game developer themselves. And that's like known as a primary sale. In Axie, we do things a little bit differently. So whenever an Axie is being bred, that's like not something that we are, like say, selling directly to the players. There is two parts in that transaction. Like there is one part where we, make our money that's going actually into the treasury, and there is the other part that is the SLP token that's required. And since we are not selling that token directly to the players, like the only way to get it is actually by playing and working inside the game. Mm-hmm. There is like this it's hard to inflate it out of control. Of course, we're paying very close attention to like if there is going to be some sort of hyperinflation, and these things might come from, for example, players botting the system or like extracting too much value out of Axie Infinity, then we will of course take action against those players. And I think that's a little bit of what the stream is about, so that everyone is more clear about how value is being created inside Axie. Because each Axie game character, I mean, it is unique. It is a digital pet. It is something that can be used inside the game and also future Axie games. So there's all this implied value for the future, but everything is about the value that we add to it. Like we need to create more games, and the same also goes for the community. They also need to add value to these game characters. So I hope that explains a little bit more about how we think about SLP and Axie, like at a more like high level economy wise.
So we had a follow-up question that might be kind of tangential to part of that answer from Raphael Norman on Reddit. He said, right now it feels like the hyper growth is a big part of why everyone is able to make money. So how does the hyper growth phase that we're in right now kind of correlate or interface with this SLP strategy that you're talking about? What are things going to look like once we're not in a hyper growth phase? I mean, the growth we're at right now is not going to be able to keep up forever. I think that's a fair statement.
Sure. Yeah. No, you can go, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, so the way to think of Axie, right, is it's a developing new economy. And yeah, just like a lot of things in crypto, things can be cyclical. There have been slower times of growth, but those times were also a lot of fun, right? Like there were a lot of memories that were created, a lot of strong bonds that were formed. So I think like even through hard times, that's actually what makes Axie special, right? But yeah, it seems like over time, the high growth phases have basically taken up, have come quicker and stayed for longer. Mm-hmm. And the lulls in between have been much shorter. So nobody can predict the future. Obviously, we as the creators of Axie, we think that the growth is going to continue for a long, long time. But yeah, it's possible, just like any new system, that there are lulls and growth slows down. But those are also the times that really make the community, that kind of people learn to bond with each other. And it's not all about making money, right? If you think that Axie is all about making money, then you should wait for a different play to earn game that comes in the future, right? A lot of it is about the relationships, having fun, learning about this technology. These are all just as important as the economic aspect.
Absolutely. And as you guys have said a couple times, as more stuff gets added to this Axie stack, more of that will come into focus. The land gameplay, various other ways to have your Axies interact with the metaverse.
Yeah, I think also to tag on to that, like we can, as a team, always add more utility for Axie, and that doesn't necessarily have to be so hard. That could be potentially releasing Axies into the wild to like reduce the amount of Axies that are in the ecosystem, but that would be like taking a more active like stance in the economy. I think from our side, we prefer to add value, like adding more utility to the Axies themselves. But when we then look at like how many players there are in Axie Infinity right now, there are about 205,000 unique wallets that are holding Axies. And if each of those holders like should have at least 3 Axies, well, I mean, that's over 600,000 Axies that are required. And then when we look at the total amount of Axies in the ecosystem, there are just shy over 1 million. Like there aren't that many Axies in the ecosystem right now. So there is plenty and plenty and plenty of room to grow and to breed more Axies. So excited to see how fast this will go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning 1 million, Alex, because that is something that we absolutely have to address here. For those of you that missed it, last night we did roll over the 1 millionth Axie has been minted, created, bred, forged, whatever the proper verb is there. Super exciting milestone for this whole community. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of drama, a little bit of gray area surrounding this 1 millionth Axie. Jeff, maybe you could share some info on how that whole thing's going, as it's I mean, this is like 12 hours old, so this is super real-time stuff that's happening here.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, as you mentioned, right, we hit Axie 1 million. Obviously, that's an amazing milestone that we're really excited about. And the entire community, right, a lot of people, they were excited about the chance to actually breed this Axie themselves. And so basically what happened is there was a breeder who used an advanced strategy where he was actually able to use MetaMask to submit breeding transactions on Ronin. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a gray area where, he was technically, right, like there was no bot, like he was at his computer.
It was manual.
Basically doing this. But there are some details that we need to look into. So basically, we know that emotions are high, and everyone wants to, feel like they have had a fair shot at breeding an Axie, which is just cool, right? This Axie number 1 million, right? So we are going to be looking into this. We're going to be looking at our TOS and basically coming to making some decision that we think is going to be fair for everybody in the community. I think a lot of the confusion kind of stems from our terms of service, right? Our terms of service come from, they were drawn up a long time ago when we were still on Ethereum, and it was kind of in the pre-Ronin era. So I think what we're looking at is basically we need to look at the terms, see if they make sense with where the community and the game is at right now. And so basically we'll be doing kind of a diagnosis, and we'll let the community know what we decide. And I think we're just obviously our number one goal is to be transparent and to let you guys know into our thinking process. And I think I was really excited to see that people really cared about Axie number 1 million, right? It's obviously amazing. That's why the emotions were so high. It was actually more than I even expected. And yeah, I think obviously we want to come to a solution that really clears everything up, and at least we can kind of avoid similar confusion and events in the future.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember all this stuff is so new. Like the terms of service are a living, breathing document that will be updated over time. And occasionally something new is going to come out, and we got to deal with a situation like this. But I will say I was definitely one of those people sitting there looking at the breed count going up and then went, wow, it just jumped a couple hundred. I guess I missed it. Oh, bummer. I wasn't that upset about it. But yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. It's amazing to see the passion surrounding Axie number 1 million. I did not think so many people would be up late trying to breed that little guy. All right.
Is it a good segue to maybe show the little leak that we had planned for Axie number 1 million? I know that Jeff has been really looking forward to it. So
there you go. She's
maybe he can announce it. He's generally the.
All right. So we're gonna announce this. I think Andrew said that we want to do it at the end, right? To give something, give something for people to look forward to. But basically, right, we hinted that hitting Axie number 1 million would unlock something. This thing is for the entire community. It's been a long time since we've leaked something. It's going to be a very visual leak. And yeah, we're super excited to share it. And we'll do that, I think, closer to the end of the stream, so you guys have to sit with us for a little bit longer.
Yeah, stick with us until the big reveal comes. It didn't just happen, the teaser of the teaser at all. Anyway, let's move forward. I want to talk about the DEX a little bit because we got a lot of questions about even what this word means. A lot of people have heard the chatter of the Ronin DEX. For those that don't know, DEX just means decentralized exchange. Jeff, can you tell us anything about this mysterious DEX that I've heard so many rumors about?
So yeah, I think other than server stability, which we're working really hard on, I think our number one most requested feature from the community is the Ronin DEX, right? This is going to have more liquidity for think tokens like Axies, SLP, straight on Ronin, so that you don't have to go through the annoyance of transferring your tokens across the bridge to send them to some other exchange, right? This is going to allow Ronin to be an even more streamlined experience. And yeah, we're working really hard on it. I think, there's progress. I will say maybe that we hope that it's still going to be warm in the temperate or the seasonal areas of the world. We hope that it's still going to be warm when you guys are using this DEX. Obviously, right, like things like this, scaling the server is kind of like on the immediate roadmap. So
yeah,
but yeah, the DEX, we even have a name for it, which we think is going to be pretty cool. And I think the mechanics, I think there are going to be some surprises too. And I really think that basically the goal is to make it the number one place to trade all of the tokens within our ecosystem, right? We don't want to have to be relying, right? Like I think Ronin, we call it Ronin. Why? Because a Ronin is a samurai without a master, right? Here, we don't want our community to have any other masters, right? To be reliant on anyone else, right? I think that's always been our philosophy. Yeah. And yeah, we don't want people to have to be, going to all these other different exchanges, right? Everything should be within our ecosystem. All the value should be retained within our amazing community.
And is the DEX related to when we'll be able to finally stake AXS? Because that's another really common question I've been getting from people. Staking when? People are so excited about that.
Yeah, maybe Alex can jump in.
I think before we go there, I want to take a step back just to explain a little bit of what DEX enables for Axie Infinity, because we have a lot of very new people to the blockchain. The very easiest way to consider a DEX is just a marketplace for assets like small love potions or smooth love potions, Axie Infinity shards, and maybe in the future wood, other kind of resources that can be very easily traded against one-to-one. They are the same. So that's called a fungible asset. So a fungible decentralized exchange would basically be somewhere where you can trade one-to-one very simply. You have something like that in the crypto space, like a Uniswap or a SushiSwap, and we're going to be having that inside the Ronin blockchain as well. Just going to be a little bit easier to use for those who are used to the trading game assets. Not everything has to be blockchainified. Our goal is to make this easier to understand for normal people. So when we're talking about staking AXS or the Axie Infinity Shard token, it's definitely been really high on our list, because what do we want to achieve here, right? We want to incentivize the right kind of behavior for the people who are holding on to the Axie Infinity Shard token, right? So if you're holding on to it and you're adding value to Axie Infinity, then you deserve to be rewarded. And when I say adding value, I mean you are at least you are playing the game, or you are at least logging in and doing things. Well, that can be equal to reward. And that reward, well, that could be new Axie Infinity shards, or being able to vote on what happens to the revenue that's inside the treasury, and which we all know is going exceedingly well right now in terms of revenue. Mm-hmm. To go more deeply into the timelines, we're aiming for release of that before the end of Q3, but it could also be faster than that. So incredibly excited to release staking to everyone.
Yeah, both of those super exciting. Just having access to the DEX and staking, that is a big step towards our digital nation, and bright future indeed. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. I have some more questions from the Reddit thread, though. I do want to ask maybe a good time just to mention scaling. The servers are overloaded right now, so I see a lot of people in Twitch chat asking server when, server fix when. And some of the comments, I have to admit, it seemed like they imply it's easy. You guys have the money. You guys have the users. Why don't you just plug in some more servers? I don't understand why this is so hard. Maybe you guys can dispel why it is so hard to scale a ship like this, because these are unprecedented times, right? We're doing something that hasn't really been done before at this scale.
Yeah. So I think I'll start here. So the interesting thing about what we're building in Axie is that it's combining all of these different disciplines, I would say, of technology. And it's not only like we're not using only e-commerce, for example, even though you can trade Axies, but we're also combining blockchain and building new financial rails for the entire, I would say, gaming ecosystem in the future, potentially. So what that means is that whenever we are creating something, it needs to not only scale for us, but also to potentially other like millions of users in the future. Mm-hmm. And it's not like we can just turn on the server and then everything is good, right? We grew from 38,000 daily active users to now around 200,000 in about 6-7 weeks, which is insane, right? I don't think we had expected that before we were ready to release the new update of the battle game, but we're trying our best. Our engineers are working double time to keep the lights on. So I do thank everyone for their patience in these trying times, but everything is coming from growth. So from our opinion, like it's better that at least we're growing, and there are growing pains, but it's just a symptom of how many people actually care about Axie Infinity and the ecosystem. So things are in progress. It will get better. It's just, it takes a little bit of time when you're reinventing gaming, so to say.
And I think it's also important to recognize that from a developer programming standpoint, there's a very limited amount of people that understand Solidity, blockchain, Ethereum, sidechains to be able to develop the stuff that we need. It's not as simple as just putting up a job listing and picking from all of these developers that want to jump aboard. It's a pretty small list of people that you have to go out and find and convince them that your project is worth it. It's not an easy equation to just scale the development team, 2 or 3x to match the crazy growth that we have right now.
Yeah, it's kind of. I was just reading an article, and the hardest types of products to scale are e-commerce sites with complex payment integrations, right? And it's like payment portals plus e-commerce sites, right? They're usually separate, and oftentimes they're separate. Whereas we're dealing with cryptocurrency payments at a scale that few people have ever seen before, right? We're doing amazing things, bigger things than anybody's ever seen within the NFT space, and we're also dealing with a very complex marketplace, right? Like hooking up the blockchain and reading Ronin in the application, right? There's a lot of basically complex data structures and reading that needs to be done. So I'm not an expert on it, but we're basically, our engineers are heroes. They're doing things that have never been done before, and thanks for the patience. As we're gonna get there. It's their number one priority right now. So we're incredibly confident, and I think just the fact that we've been able to get to this point and handle this load, I think is an accomplishment as well.
Absolutely, exciting times every day. We're breaking records. All right, switching gears again. This is from LD, I think a recognizable name. He had some great questions on the Reddit thread. He asked about releasing Axies. Now, this is something I don't know much about, but apparently someone at some point has mentioned in the past that this may be a feature to enter Lunasia. There will be some sort of recycling depot or some way to take your useless Axies and then turn them into a shard or something more useful. Break this down for me. How do I release my Axies that don't have any synergy with their traits?
No Axies are useless. Just
okay,
gotta say that to start. Woo! Yeah, Jeff, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So I think as gamers, right, some of the best games of all time have had really awesome crafting systems, right? Like I grew up using the Horadric Cube in Diablo, right? Where you're crafting these crazy things, right? Basically, crafting is when you kind of turn some ingredient or material into a new ingredient that you can then use to create something else, right? So we've talked about in the past how Axie would have its own crafting system where you could earn different ingredients and perhaps even, let's say, release Axies into the wild to get these ingredients. What would these ingredients be used for? They could be used for things like upgrading your Axies body parts. They might be useful in building structures on top of your land. So I think this is this is actually a very key component of the economy moving forward. And I think that's going to be a huge catalyst for us. Our game design team is kind of integrating with our game economics team right now. They're thinking about it, and I think it's always right. That's an additional layer on top of the gameplay. I think right now we're very focused on making sure that Battles V2 and LAN gameplay is fun, right? Like that's the primary thing. Is like it needs to be amazing and fun. And then we can add on the game economics on top of that as well. So, I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be another one of these, right, like SLP moments to the entire ecosystem where we kind of introduce this new model of gaming or this new economic design that kind of takes us into a new growth trajectory as well. So yeah, I think people are really excited about that, and I think they rightfully should be, right? Because this is one of the ways that we make it so that right now, one of the main way that people progress in the game is just by building out their collection, getting more and more Axies, right? But in the future, we want people to really bond and connect with their Axies, right? By really focusing on upgrading and advancing, right? This is what we would call vertical progression, and by upgrading their Axie, right, like making it so that it has level 2 parts, level 3 parts, level 4 parts, even.
I'm just hearing Axie cosmetics. Everything you're saying in my brain is translated to Axie cosmetics. When can I get a hat on my Axie? When can I get Mr. Yams in a dress? These are the pressing questions I have.
Yes, I mean you can kind of think, I would say you can think of the body parts as the upgraded body parts as those, but I think our art team and our game design team, they always have surprises for us, and who knows what direction they could go in the future.
Absolutely. In-game emotes, similar. That's another one that was been suggested. I want more ways to taunt my opponent if I hit the brick wall or if I destroy him through his brick wall. Direct question, any plans for more special events? We had Japanese parts. We had that Christmas event however long ago. Some of those parts are still lingering. Any plans to do another event similar to those?
So the interesting thing here is that when we look at breeding, like the breeding Axie game, there has been such a long time where we haven't been able to do anything with it because of the gas fees that we had to deal with on Ethereum. So like it's not so long ago that whenever you had to breed an Axie, you needed to do multiple transactions on Ethereum. Some new players might have probably never seen that, but that basically put a full stop to the development or to the further development of the breeding game. Now that we can go back into the game design stage, that means that we can do maybe a lot more exciting things and have more breeding events, for example, and other special events. So definitely want to do that, but it's just been a natural thing that we haven't been able to focus on that due to living on Ethereum for so long.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What has surprised each of you the most over, let's say, the last 3 months, the last quarter? All of this hyper growth, the 24-hour sale volume exploding, our server struggling to handle the load. Like where we're at right now, what has you the most surprised? If you could go back in time, thinking about 2 years ago, predictions for June 2021. What's like the least expected thing we're dealing with right now?
So for me, I think the awesome thing that surprised me is, okay, I knew that volume would explode. I knew that our number of players would explode. I knew that the number of content creators in our ecosystem would explode. I didn't think that they would all kind of go parabolic in lockstep at the same time, right? And that really, I think, shows how awesome the model is, right? It's that, okay, there's more players and there's more content creators, and this all gets funneled back into the economy, right? I think, so I think, the system has grown kind of in unison and almost all the different kind of all the interlocking parts. And I think, that was amazing. Otherwise, I think, as I say, like, it just seems normal to me a little bit, because we expected this, right? Like, we've been purposely building for 3 years with this amazing community, and even when it was small, we knew that this community was special, and we were destined for greatness. So yeah, but I would say, like, the fact that everything kind of blew up simultaneously, and it's like, now, okay, like, we have all these awesome Twitch streamers, YouTubers. I think that was really kind of, yeah, a welcome surprise to me, I would say.
For sure. Alex, does anything surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar thing, I guess, that Jeff has. I mean, I think I'm most surprised by how fast it suddenly happened, because we had been building for so long. And when you're so, you have that laser focus that, okay, this is happening, and then suddenly it happens, you get really taken aback by how passionate everyone is about what it is that you have been creating for so long. Because we've been living and breathing Axie for 3 years, and then suddenly people come in and they feel the same way that we do about what we have been creating, and that's incredibly powerful. And it happens so fast because I feel like it hits something special in terms of like the emotions of many people. I mean, a lot of people, they come to Axie first. They hear about the ability to kind of make money, and then they come in and they buy their first Axie, or they become a scholar, and then they realize that there is something much more that's actually happening here than just this very simple game. I mean, Axie is a combination of a game, and you have the community, and you have the economy. Everything that's surrounding it is Axie Infinity. It's not just, hey, I'm playing the game. Like, that in itself is not something that I would like sacrifice my life to for 12 hours every day for 3 years. I mean, yeah, it happens really fast. And I'm incredibly excited to see how many people care so much about what we're creating.
All right. Can we talk about version 2 of Battles a little bit? I guess I don't know exactly if there is anything we can reveal, or if we can just talk generally about it, but got a lot of questions asking about how it's coming along, even just general. Are we along the roadmap? Is it going to be released along the timeline that we had originally hoped for? Any delays there? And I guess people are curious if there's anything at all we can leak, share, or tease when it comes to version 2 Battles.
Yeah, we're gonna leak something. We're gonna leak something at the end of this stream. So, yeah, I would say that. So we, as the roadmap mentioned, and I think we mentioned in our last development update, we have been running a very small alpha of Battles V2. There's a lot that's good, and then there are a couple of things that we need to work on. I think obviously we have really high standards for ourselves. So yeah, it's playable. It's something that real people are using and having fun with, and yeah, I don't anticipate, right now. I don't see any major delays. Or yeah, it can be it's a little bit tough to anticipate, because there's a lot of moving pieces. But yeah, I think we're really excited about where it is right now.
Yeah, I think to expand on that, for everyone who is worried about growth or thinking, hey, this is a bubble, I mean, we released the current version of the battle game early on in 2020. It's almost like almost 1.5 years ago by now. So over that time, we've been developing the new game, and once we go to market with that, like, it will be with a free-to-play game, so that people can actually, like, non-crypto people can come in and fall in love with the game, and play some Axie Infinity, and then maybe buy their game characters from there. Like, of course, these free players won't be able to earn the same amount as those who have been purchasing Axies, but our goal is to get an Axie into the hands of like every person in the world. I mean, that's what I'm working towards. And with this new game, I think we'll be able to do that, because then we can use, get it on Apple Store, get it on Steam, get it on the Epic Game Store, because there is no crypto initially. It's just like a fun, cute little game. people can try, and then
Yeah.
see everything that's amazing about Axie that's not like clear initially.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that version 2 of Battles is exciting for gameplay and having a new, fresh style of battle arena to enjoy. But free to play is a big part of version 2, and that is a huge catalyst for the future of Axie. I mean, we still have this long line of scholars that want to get their hands on Axie and just simply can't right now because of economic constraints or various other issues with access. But once free to play is here, that equation completely changes, right?
Yeah. Should we just? I mean, imagine whenever you want to involve someone else in Axie Infinity right now, they need to jump through some insane hoops. I mean, you need your Roman wallet, you need to buy crypto, you need to store that wallet, and then you need to connect these two things. Like, there are so many things that players have to do, but still they are doing it because they want to try out what this new technology enables. And that should really show people like how early we are.
Yeah.
And the potential for how far this can actually go. So Axie Infinity is a new intellectual property or brand that has never existed before, that we made. You can consider it like, imagine if you could discover Pokemon like at the beginning when that was like created.
Yeah, when there were 15 Pokemon. Yeah, no, that's amazing. And now what about the economics around free to play? Because I also see a lot of people concerned about, well, if everybody gets free access to Axies, can those Axies grind SLP? Won't that tank SLP? Will the free Axies have any effect on like the NFT Axies in the marketplace? Anything that we can say about like the economics surrounding this model?
So I think there are so many people who just don't want to get started with Axie because, right, they want to. Most people, they want to play a game or see that it's fun before they make huge economic decisions, right? And right, so that's what these free Axies are for, is just to allow anybody with a couple of clicks to start getting a taste of our universe and to fall in love with our universe, right? And these Axies, these free starter Axies, they're not going to be right like racking up SLP. There might be like 2 to 5% or maybe even less of the earning ability of real blockchain Axies, right? But what it does is it creates way more demand for the real blockchain Axies. Why? Because people can start falling in love with the universe super smoothly and quickly. And so I think, right, like the main effect that it's going to have on the blockchain real Axies is that I think that it's going to make demand for them skyrocket because there are going to be so many more people who are in love with the Axie universe.
Speaking about sharing the love, how about guilds? I've seen a lot of requests, and I think this goes hand in hand with scholarship management. That's sort of like a guild vehicle in some ways, but ultimately people want to play with their friends, and we don't really know what guilds look like yet. Is that close? Is that more aligned with like land gameplay? Is that more aligned with version 2 of Battles and free to play? Any idea what like Axie guilds could look like in the future?
Yeah. So Axie guilds are incredibly exciting. It's something that we've wanted for a very, very long time and been considering how we can implement it in a good way. But what a guild means to me is just that there is the ability for the guild to work together to achieve a larger goal. And that should probably happen inside the game so that everyone can get access to it. I mean, one of the principles that we have as a team is that we want like tools and features to be available to everyone, not just engineers and to talented people who might be able to interact with the code somehow. So we're definitely working on some guild features that mean that maybe you will be able to deposit your Axie into a potential guild bank and then borrow that out to some other players who are in your guild. And that happens like automatically. It's not something that a scholar should have to trust their manager so that they get paid. That should happen automatically. The truth is that things have happened very fast in terms of the scholarship and the growth. And there are people, unfortunately, who are abusing their powers as like Axie owners that we can definitely see. And that also goes against what we believe in as a core team. So we try to take action where it makes sense. And having that, scholarship or guild feature inside the game is very important for the long-term growth of Axie. So we're definitely working on that. How fast it's going to happen is a little bit harder to say because we have, our product roadmap that is very full right now because there's so many requests for amazing features that we do need. And now that, the Roman, like the infrastructure piece of Axie is finally at a stage where it's getting very stable. But that means that we can kind of get back to focusing on some of these really cool features inside the game. So it's definitely coming, but I can't say exactly when.
Not the highest on the stack, but yeah, very exciting. And your answer there made me think about scholarships a little bit. And I'm curious how you guys feel about scholarships, mostly in the context of that wasn't a Sky Mavis thing, right? That was an idea that was born within the community. It was a really great idea, so it took hold within the community, kind of spread like wildfire. And I think everybody who's in the space sees the dialogue about requests for scholarships on a daily basis now. I don't know what the question is, just like general thoughts. Were you guys surprised when somebody came up with this? Had anybody internally thought that maybe this could happen? Was this maybe expected? Any insight you could share there, I think, would be interesting.
So I think we saw the first scholarship during COVID through Animal Crossing, where Tom Nook was forcing gamers all over the world to work for him, and taking 100% of, or in many cases, right, ridiculous rates. But that's a joke. But yeah, we did see, right, we started to see when SLP was first released, some people trying out the model. For example, you might tell your girlfriend or your wife or someone in your family, hey, just use my account and I'll buy you dinner or something if you can earn this amount of SLP, right? It started out like that, and we started to think that it might work, and some people were tweeting about it, and it wasn't until I think SLP hit right around 2 cents that people were like, oh, this could be a legitimate business, right, a real thing. And I think AK is kind of the first one to really do it at scale, and it was it worked really well and kind of grew from there. But yeah, it's obviously been amazing, and I think it's definitely helped our growth and allowed a lot of people. It's kind of like a middle ground where people can start playing the game if they just have the desire to put in a lot of effort, right? So
yeah. Alex, anything to add? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been in touch with plenty of players who are running their own scholarships. I try to support when I can, but I mean, it's not something that we officially from Sky Mavis have a direct say in. We have some guidelines that we might say that, I mean, you should treat your players nicely. I mean, these are common sense things that I expect from human beings. So if you abuse other players, and then I think that's my major concern, is that some players are doing that. But I think it's incredibly exciting to see that Axie Infinity is becoming more like a job platform, actually. I had a longer tweet thread about it, I think, in back in November, before things really started to blow up, because I started to see that there was even real life work contracts being circulated, where people were being hired to farm SLP. And then we started, seeing Yield Guild really take off and do it at scale. So it's been amazing to follow the entire scholarship journey. And I think we're writing history here in Axie, just showing what's possible as more and more players, will travel across the metaverse, I suppose is a meme word to say, but to farm various tokens and make a living inside of these virtual worlds. Yeah. And, Axie is also a virtual world. It's just we have a different approach to the entire virtual world way of thinking. The first thing we do in Axie is we make Axie into a game. And then eventually we can take all the users that we have or players that love Axie and then turn it into more of a virtual world using land, for example, that we have inside Axie. So yeah, it's just the beginning, but incredibly excited to see everything that people are building and doing in the Axie ecosystem.
Totally unrelated question here. Another one from LD, though. This one did catch my attention as I'm the guy that works with creators a lot. What's going on with Axie lore? Do we have any plans, any thoughts to develop Axie lore, any kind of shorts or animations? Are we leaving that to the community to kind of pencil in the lore for their own Axies as they see fit? Have you guys ever had a discussion about lore, or is that just not quite on the radar yet?
Yeah, so I think Axie lore has so much potential, right? It just needs to be done the right way, and I think we want to be really careful about it. And it's something that I think is going to be really crucial for us in the long term. But it's maybe hasn't been the time. And yeah, I think it's something that can add, right, like an Axie movie, right, an Axie manga. I think all of this is possible and potential, but I think right now our focus is to make Axie as fun as possible, and we already have so many different balls in the air, so but there's so much potential there for sure.
Something to think about next year, maybe after we get some of the foundation. We still got some bricks to lay before we start decorating the house, huh?
I mean, I do I also come from the Dota space, right? I mean, I do how long did it take for Dota to come with an anime? I mean, I played Dota 1 15 years ago. Yeah, 15 years ago, Dota 1 or something. So, I mean, there is plenty of time. We don't have to tackle every problem immediately, or not problem, but opportunity, right?
Sure.
These are opportunities to I guess, add revenue streams to the treasury of Axie down the line, potentially. So, yeah, it can happen, but it also depends on how fast we can scale and if we meet the right partners who are interested in doing this, for example.
Yeah.
Of course, we have internal stories about Axies and how they came into existence, and like the Mio Corporation, where does that come from? There are all of these tidbits that you can find around the Axie Infinity universe that they aren't random. They are there for a reason. It's just like we haven't had time to double down on that storytelling. We'd rather just make a fun game and a functional economy first, and then I guess explain a little bit more what everything is about.
And I'm sure land gameplay will create more opportunities both on our side and the community side to start getting a little more creative with the storytelling. Your Axies are actually on an adventure and collecting stuff rather than just mindlessly battling in the arena. So that's exciting, though. I love that little bit of behind the scenes storytelling stuff, though. I saw some people in chat saying live action Axie movie when, and I'm hoping we see a couple of those for our short video contest. We still have, I think, about 9 days before submissions close, maybe even a little bit longer. So if you have an idea, it's not too late to get those live action Axie submissions sent along. But okay, so I had another question here about multi-accounting. Obviously, there have been some ban waves recently. I think most of us are aware of that. The question was fairly generic in nature. Just do we have tools to really combat multi-accounting? Are we worried about this being like a scaling issue as we bring on more users? Are our tools sophisticated enough to deal with that future of, as we grow, there's going to be more bad actors coming in trying to find ways to exploit the system? Are we prepared for that?
Yeah. So this question is probably one of the hardest ones. Like, I think in the entire gaming world, as we move from this old place where the companies are extracting value from players to like the value being shared with companies with players, because the premise of that is actually that there are real players. Like, there can't be, if you have one person playing 10 accounts, that person then puts such a strain on the game by extracting so much value that the entire system can go under. So these are major concerns for us, and something that we are spending a lot of time thinking about, analyzing like heaps and heaps of data to make sure that we don't ban people who are like on the right side of playing on the right side of the fence. And there are challenges, right? Because some people might be living in the same house and they are playing on the same IP, and they might have similar playing styles. But I mean, it's very hard for two people who are playing in the same house to be logged on at the exact same time all the time, for example, to have the exact same playing style. So we analyze all of this stuff, and then we look more deeply into it to determine who is multi-accounting, for example. Because one human being can only extract so much SLP per day. Like, that's in the rules, and that's one of the most important principles that we have. Because Axie is more than a game. It's a network, and we need new human beings. We don't need one human being, like, playing 10 accounts. That doesn't give us anything. You need to tell your friends, and that's the only way Axie can grow. So I think we'll see. Like, I don't want to go too deeply into exactly what we're doing to combat it, because it's too easy to reverse engineer. And that's also a little bit dangerous. But I can tell you that we're going to be using the most sophisticated tools that we can find, and even create our own tools so that we can combat this. Whether or not that means like biometric, like login or KYC down the line, we don't know. I don't want to exclude anything. Everything we need to do is basically to grow this system and to make it into a sustainable economy. Of course, we don't want to do any of these things, but if we're forced to, I guess we have to.
And it's for the protection of the ecosystem at large, right? I think that's the key thing to remember. If you have too many people, as you said, extracting resources from the economy starts to lose some of its foundation that we've worked so hard to build over the last few years. Or I guess I should say you guys have worked so hard to build over the last few years. Jeff, anything you want to add on that front with multi-accounting stuff?
We will find you, and we will find you. I mean, with any economy, there are going to be bad actors. There are going to be people who try and manipulate and use the system and abuse the system. It's always going to be a game of cat and mouse. But yeah, we I think have a lot of tools at our disposal, and we take it very seriously, right? I think this is one of the key differences between an NFT gaming ecosystem and a traditional gaming ecosystem. The traditional gaming ecosystem, the game economy is, very, very low on their list of priorities. They won't care, right? They'll let bots and they'll let these, huge operations just destroy the game economy, and the game developer really doesn't care. So I think, first and foremost, the fact that it's one of the things that we put a lot of effort into, I think that's one of the key differences between our ecosystem and a traditional gaming ecosystem. Just the fact that we care a lot about it, and it's, one of our top priorities. So I think it's really important. And the technology for figuring out this stuff out, it's out there, and we may also make some breakthroughs as well, in terms of creating something that's never been created before to fit our specific purpose.
Gotcha.
Actually, I have another thing I want to add here.
Sure.
Because I saw a person mention in the chat, like, decentralized game, KYC, all of this stuff. I think I just want to make something clear. Like, Axie Infinity is not a decentralized game right now. We have a stated goal to turn Axie Infinity into a decentralized organization over time. But these are things that, like, the game needs a ship captain or a developer that can steer this in the right direction at first. And then as time goes, we can, like, progressively decentralize things by giving away some of the power that we have into the players' hands, like through governance or other ways. But for now, we're very confident in our approach, and this is how we got so far. So we are going to be steering this ship into the direction that we please for the foreseeable future. Of course, until like AXS and staking and all these things are happening. But for now, we still need to be in charge and to make sure that things are heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and if I remember from what I read, either in the white paper or one of the other documents we have, I think by like late 2023 is around the time when Sky Mavis will no longer be the majority vote of AXS anymore, sort of a rough guesstimate. So it's a spectrum over time, right? Fairly centralized now, but over time it becomes more and more decentralized, kind of on a sliding scale. And that's by design, so that we don't just hand it over one day and then the whole thing falls over because there isn't that driving force supporting it. It's a balance, I guess, is the TLDR there, right?
Yeah, the scary thing here is, when we're dealing with capital, there are all of these different stakeholders, right, who have their own incentives to push the game into one specific direction. And that means that if we're sharing the reins a little bit too early, we might get pushed down a direction that might be good for that specific party, but bad for the ecosystem as a whole. So since we've been building this for so long, we feel very comfortable in our decision-making and our judgment as to what is the right path forward. But whether or not that's going to be how it is in 5 or 10 years, I guess time will show. And the timeline that you're quoting, yes, it's the potentially, like, if all the tokens were distributed, that would be the time that we could potentially lose majority. But I don't see that happening at that time so fast.
Gotcha. Okay. Great insight there. Pivoting back to land. This was a good question from Puzzle-Headed Pipe 7000 on Reddit. Also a great username. Inquiring about land gameplay and the SDK that is going to be available with it. That's a software development kit, basically some sort of map editor where, owners of land gameplay will have the opportunity to develop mini games or something like that. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but a lot of mystery around what the limitations are there, what landholders will actually be able to do with that development kit. And Puzzle-Headed Pipe is curious if advertising could be part of that model. I know right now there's a firm clause in the terms about no advertising, but I mean, could somebody within a state open up a little storefront and advertise their services or something? Is there anything around that you could share with us about land gameplay?
I think, definitely players being able to operate their own little shops on their land. That's always been part of the original vision for land. And I think that, yes, allowing people to advertise certain things on their land is, a key value prop long term. I think our approach to land, however, is a little bit different than some of the developers out there. Our approach to land is at the beginning to come prepared with a kind of structured, fun experience, right? That might be harvesting resources. That might be fighting kind of a war over resources. We think that this is what the direction to go, where we actually provide a lot of fun and utility within the land system, rather than just being kind of a blank slate where people walk around and look at billboards, right? Like, there are actually enough of those types of systems. And that's what a lot of people think of when they think about lands. I think our system is going to be a lot different, and that there's going to be a lot of fun things that you can do that we ourselves have built. So
Very cool.
The SDK though, right? Like user generated content, it's going to be so huge, so important. But I think nobody is going to want to build things for Axie Land if there aren't already people using it and having fun with it, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that we actually seed the universe with some experience, that's what actually creates the desire for people to actually use the SDK when it comes out. You can't just skip to the user-generated SDK part without having millions, hundreds of thousands, millions of people enjoying that space. And this is also the direction that we've seen work in traditional gaming, right?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, content is actually what it's about. Having that main storyline, having something that attracts people to come into your playground so that they can play. And then you can evolve that into something much more exciting than that, rather than, let's say, if we made the game, the SDK first, then we would have to pay other people to make our game universe for us. Like, we prefer to make it ourselves, make a fun, exciting game, get a lot of players, and then eventually, we can open up these tools. And when we're talking about the SDK, the very simplest of terms, it will just be a map editor where you can use some Axie assets to create potential mini games. Think of something like Axie Tower Defense. That's something that I'm very excited to see being created with the SDK, and then monetized from there to place on top of your land. But that's also happening in the future. Our main purpose will still be to kind of create that fun gameplay piece on land. So I guess we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, still a lot of time to develop there, but all this stuff, very exciting. So many possibilities, and I think a lot of us are still just trying to wrap our brains around the parameters so we can start planning our small empires with our little 2-plot estates. Yeah, that's me right there. Follow-up question from Kriegel on Reddit, asking if there's going to be a way to share land. The example given, my wife and I bought a plot together. We split it 50-50, but only one of our accounts can technically own it. Once land gameplay is out, will there be some way that we can share the plot and both realize some utility out of it?
I think it's related to guilds. Same thing, really. We believe in productive assets. I mean, there is a synergy. We come from the crypto space and gaming space. So when we think about these things, a lot of people in the crypto space, they are focusing now on productive assets. By definition, a game asset is productive because it can be used inside a game. So it's only natural that you would be able to do something with your land. If you can't use it yourself, then maybe you could let other players harvest resources on top of that and utilize it.
Gotcha. Okay. Alex, talk to me about merch. Got a lot of people asking Axie plushies when, Axie shirts when. We got a lot of fans that want to share the love with some physical items. Any progress there that we can share with the hungry merch fans out there?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for merchandise. I love physical goods. I think it's so important. We had like a very super short merchandise run in, I think it was 2018 or 2019. Like me, I'm wearing an Axie t-shirt. Jeff is wearing an Axie t-shirt. We have some hoodies. We have produced a limited run of plushies in the past, but nothing that has really been for sale. Yeah, that is the Puff, the plushie. So what we're working on now is actually a merchandise run that should be available sometime this winter. So that is a short leak, some t-shirts, maybe some exciting more larger drops. But it takes time to create things of quality, and we definitely want to make sure that whatever it is that we are shipping from Axie Official has really high quality, so that people can wear it with pride and it feels good to have it.
Feels good. That is key. Got to have high quality t-shirts, right, Jeff? Silky smooth.
Mm-hmm. You muted?
Oh, Jeff's muted. Uh-oh. So we got to deal with our international ping here. Everything's on 500 ms. Welcome back, buddy.
The smooth love shirt. Definitely.
Yeah.
That'll be the future. No, I love the plushies. I want to get my hands on one. I'm super excited. Yeah, I'm feeling impatient when it comes to the merch. I'm with you, Alex. I love the physical stuff. I'm a real sucker. One of the last questions I had here was about the API. People asking about if there will ever be public access for it. There are some great tools that have been created already. Axie Zone got a shout out of one that I think people commonly use just to get notes on what's happening in the meta and the top players in the arena. Anything that we can share about API access, or just getting more and more requests of people wanting access? So what is that pipeline? What does that process look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so API access is something that we find is very important as well. I mean, up until this point, Axie Infinity has been in a transitional phase. So we've been a little bit careful with sharing the API because things are breaking or things are being changed so fast. As we now move into a more stable phase, it also means that we can open up the API a little bit more. What that means is that some tools or some things might be able to be automated, but that's also related to the terms of service, right? If some tools are automated, everyone in the community should be able to access them, actually. That's some of the principles of fairness that we have. So it's a work in progress. And having Seuchenhund onboarded into the kind of as an Axie Infinity DAO developer is an important first step of that, because he's the one who's going to be owning that piece of the infrastructure, and then helping other developers understand the possibilities of what they can build with Axie Infinity. So when we take a step back and consider NFTs, what is it about? I think we are in a luxury position because we have our own game that we can use our NFTs in. But in 2018, when Axies were on Ethereum, we had a very open API, and we started seeing some games being developed like Flappy Axie and Axie Sushi, for example, which is a racing game. So, of course, we wanted to kind of lean into that idea of openness to let people use the assets. But it takes a little bit of time to actually make a sustainable or a functional infrastructure that can actually provide a service for all the players that we have right now who want to use our game. So that's our first priority, and then eventually opening up the APIs for third-party developers.
I think that makes sense. Jeff, anything to add there, or was that pretty inclusive?
Yeah, I think getting Sushinhund on board too, right? He's a community developer. He's going to be wrangling a lot of the community developers. I think it shows that this is something that we're taking seriously, and it just needs to happen at the right pace and the right time. Right now, we've grown so quickly, right? People are like, oh, I need the API to do this. I need the API to do that. And we're excited that you want the API and that someone actually wants to use our API for something. It's just unfortunately, if we have all these different people pinging our APIs, right? It just puts further stress, right? So we need to create systems, right? For example, a dedicated API just for community developers, things like that. And that just takes time to build. So yeah, obviously, we really want to unleash the creative potential of our community. I think, that's how we win in the long term. But we also have to balance it with the things that we're actually doing. So
it's all step by step, one step forward, two steps backwards in a lot of these situations. A question I'm seeing a lot in Twitch chat and that I've also gotten on Twitter a fair amount, confusion regarding playing Axie when, quote, the server is down or it's down for maintenance or there are issues that with connectivity that people are experiencing. I think during the last band wave, some people heard that there were people playing during maintenance, and I guess some people were concerned that maybe they could trigger that accidentally if they were just logged in at the wrong time when the servers were supposed to go down for maintenance. Anything that we can share regarding playing while servers down or having connection issues? Do players need to be worried if they don't get automatically disconnected or anything like that?
Yeah, I want to clear this up. I guess once and for all. So what happens when we go down for maintenance is that the servers actually get physically turned off. So even though it says like reconnecting, you are actually disconnected. You are not connected to the server. So if you're a normal player and you don't see the maintenance sign immediately, you might still be disconnected and in maintenance. Sometimes it just lags a little bit. So that in itself, just like being there, will not necessarily be enough to trigger you getting banned. There was a lot of confusion about that. So I hope that makes things a little bit more clear. What we were looking for is people who were actively were like connected directly to the server without being like connected to the front end itself. Like they were like
bypassing the login portal,
yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
Bypassing it, and that's one of the things that's clearly like cheating, because then you are just farming more SLP than you should, and it's not a human being that's playing the game. Like there might be some robot who's doing it, so that's a concern.
Yeah.
So I hope that cleared up something. Jeff, do you want to add something there?
I think it's pretty comprehensive, right? I mean, we have to take these things very seriously, and yeah, it's a tough thing, right? Like we always believe that we're very sure whenever we enact a ban, right? Obviously, if you really don't want to get any or nick any innocent players, right? That's a huge priority for us. So there's always a very high level of certainty that we have when we enact these ban waves, and I think there was a lot of like anxiety and fear being spread. I do know that, right, a lot of it was just some of the multi-accounters or the botters, basically they specialize in making many different accounts, right? So you make 40 discords and can spam automated like FUD messages and agree with yourself. But right, like some of the fear, might have been, right, like from people who were really worried and wanted to make sure that we're taking it seriously. So yeah, we take those bans very, very seriously. And maybe the way that I personally communicated in the Discord was a little bit cavalier about it. So yeah, but I think really good communication about those is super important. And I think it's just basically I want you to know that it's something that we take really seriously. So
yeah, it's a big loss for us, for any innocent player to get accidentally tripped in one of these things. So we take every possible precaution to make sure that doesn't happen, because that's sort of like a worst case scenario on our side as a developer. Never want to punish somebody just for playing the game. That's completely against the whole reason we built this thing to begin with. So yeah, trust us when we say we take it really seriously internally.
Actually, before we move forward, with the final leak, I want to touch on something operationally, right, in terms of the game stability, stuck Axies, these kind of things, because there is a flood of questions in the chat there. We did touch on this early on in the stream too. I mean, Axie Infinity has been growing massively. That means that there will be certain growing pains that we have to deal with. And that's why we say that the game is in alpha. The reality is that there will be more bugs happening in the future too. And if you come into Axie and expecting a fully like fleshed out, perfect game, then that's unfortunately not going to happen at this point. So if you can't deal with that, maybe it's best to take a step back and take a breath, and then maybe find out if Axie right now is for you. And if it is, then maybe you have to like give us some cut us some slack here, and realize that just how early we are in this journey. So that's my advice to people. We are quite aggressive when it comes to clearing out the Discord from people who are flaming us or acting in a manner that's just not conducive to anything. Like, it's not, the criticism that we receive sometimes is not necessarily constructive at all. If you want to add value to Axie, please be constructive in your criticism and say what can be done better, and then we can potentially look into that. But I can assure you that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that the servers are better, that stuck Axies will be improved, that they will be unstuck, and these kind of things.
Absolutely. Very well said. Jeff, anything else you want to add as we get close to wrapping up here on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so excited that it seems like we over 5,000 people tuned in today. This is mind blowing. Like, I remember the first time that Alex and I ever streamed, we had 40 people watching, and we're like, yeah, 40. Like, so it's just amazing. It's mind boggling how quickly this thing has grown. And yeah, I'm just honored. I'm honored to be a Lunasian with each and every one of you. Each one of you guys is so important to this revolution. And yeah, I think, we're all really part of something really special. And yeah, thank you.
My heart's melting right now, guys. It's been I'm the new guy on the boat, but it's been an honor so far, and I couldn't be more excited about where this ship is going. Proud Lunasian here as well. But I think that does bring our community AMA to a close. Folks, we don't have a plan to do these super regularly. This isn't going to be necessarily a monthly ordeal, but I do think we want to start doing these AMAs when it feels right, when it seems like there's a backlog of questions and concerns that we can address. And again, thank you to everyone that tuned in. Make sure you do follow Axie Infinity on all the socials. That's the best way to stay up to date with all of the latest cutting edge news. Axie Infinity on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Discord. I think you know how to find us by now, but make sure you follow this Twitch stream as well. We're going to have more content coming up here on the official Axie Infinity Twitch, especially with the short video contest. The submissions close July 2nd, so still plenty of time to get your submissions in there. Check out the Discord and the socials for more information about that. And the actual, the judging, the announcement, the winners, we're going to watch those videos live on this Twitch channel. I believe July 8th is the plan for that big reveal. So still a lot of exciting stuff in the pipeline. And make sure you follow these two guys as well, at Psycheout86, at Jihos_Axie. That's with a Z there at the end of Jiho. These guys are tweeting like crazy. They got the inside scoop, so give them some love. I think we're done. Now, onward.
Wait, let's show them the leak.
Yes,
we got to show them the leak.
Here it is. So do you have stuff to say here, Jeff, or do we just let it float?
Yeah, so this is a sneak peek, a sneak leak of Origin. I think that it kind of speaks for itself. It's beautiful. And what I will say, these are two Axies, and one of them has the upgrade or the updated spiky body shape, and the other is the updated curly body shape. So yeah, fire away.
Woo! All right, folks. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time.
And that is a chimera. Yeah.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye-bye.